Hi, I'm Carolyn Tomei, State Representative, and you are watching Milwaukee Today. We're doing a series of shows about the history of Milwaukee, and we're calling these Milwaukee Yesterday. I have as my guest today Alan DeLay, a longtime resident of Milwaukee, who is just a fascinating man. We're only going to be able to just hear a small proportion of some of the things that Alan has done and is doing. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for being with us. Alan, how long have you been in Milwaukee?
1948.
1948. And why?
Yes.
What brought you to Milwaukee?
I think it was an ad in the newspaper. We were looking for a house to get out of our apartment. We had a new baby coming, my first child, and the apartment wasn't going to work, and it was just probably a newspaper ad, and we went out to Milwaukee and checked this little house near 37th and Harrison up in there, and it was good, and it had a room we could make into a nursery, and so we moved in. And then about 6 months later, they sold the place, and so we had to look, and in the neighborhood, just a mile away, and 37th and Roswell, 31st and Roswell, we found this big old house that my wife thought would be neat, and made arrangements to make payments on it forever.
And you're still in the same house?
Still in the same house, 52 years in that house. And we moved the baby and everybody, us into the big old house. And it's been a nice neighborhood, been excellent. And
you raised your children there?
Raised the children there, and they flew the coop, of course, and one lives in Oregon City, my daughter, and the other one over by the Ross Island Bridge on McAdam, Corbett. And Paul DeLay, my son, the musician, he lives out in northeast Portland, so we're all kind of together, and I have the big old house full of junk to play in.
Alan, tell us about some of your memories. You've written down some things here about, now you live in the Ardenwald neighborhood.
Yes,
some of the businesses that were in Ardenwald at that time.
Yes, well, when we moved here into the area, why, Ardenwald was as well known as Gresham and Tigard. It was a very strong community. It had its own newspaper that Don Graff edited, and had its community club. They met and everybody came, and the little 32nd Avenue there had businesses. And the main one, I think, that probably started all was the Lysick family that had, I think it's 12 or 13 children. And I remember his first store was across the street on the corner, and it was just a small one, but we used to deliver bread there with my scoutmaster. He had a Davidson's bread route around Milwaukee and Oregon City, and us older kids would ride with him a lot of times, and I remember delivering bread there. Then they graduated to across the street and built the first almost like supermarket type. And all the children worked in there. You go in and there'd be 3 or 4 of them,
Right.
working. Big family. I made family pictures for their calendar every year. Everybody got together and so forth. But Lysick's Grocery was the hub, and then up the street south was Renard's Hardware, and had other items too, but it was a fairly large store.
They're on 32nd.
Yes, on 32nd. The building now houses some kind of an industry, I think. I don't know. Anyway, then on up to Olson's was one of our favorite places there. It was a little grocery store. It was called Floss, F-L-O-S-S, Floss's Grocery. And it was really a mom and pop. Old man Floss and his wife, but very rarely saw her, I remember. But Mr. Floss wore an apron, and he'd come in, and he was fairly deaf. You had to shout. If you wanted to, let's say, a can of beans, he'd okay, and he'd say, wait here, and he'd go down the aisle and turn on lights. As he went down these little aisles, they'd turn them off again. and bring back the can. He had a cloth, and he'd wipe the dust off, and, well, that'll be about 15 cents. He'd always estimate the prices. You never knew what it was going to be, but it was the funniest thing to see him turn on and off the lights and dust the stuff. He also had in front about a 4-stool little ice cream parlor dispenser, and he'd make sundaes and milkshakes and everything. And you know, as kids, bring the kids in and sit down and have a little ice cream treat. It was great. Just couldn't beat it. But it was a very, very unusual little spot there. Then the other favorite was just down across north of Lysig's was O'Quinn's blacksmith shop. And it was a little old decrepit building, a dirt floor and everything. He had these big anvils and fire furnace and everything. And people would bring their horses from all around Portland for O'Quinn to shoe. And he made other things of metal, and we could stand outside and hear the ring and see the fire. And sometimes he'd find a stopping spot, and he'd stop everything, and he'd have a little group of us there. And he also was a magician. He did sleight of hand, and he'd do magic tricks for the kids. He was a remarkable little guy.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
But it was a very colorful spot right there, the blacksmith shop. And then I think Aunt Esther had a little restaurant on the corner of Floss, a small little restaurant that would serve dinners, and it was quite a strong community, and all those little businesses and everything. We enjoyed it.
There was a piano store.
Oh yes, that was on down the street. The building south is still there on the east side. There's no name on it now. It was a piano sales and repair. We had our piano repaired there, and it was another little unique business in the community. And clear on down south farther was the big PNC tool plant with all sorts of equipment running and roaring and making noises and everything.
Right, it was quite a business.
Yes,
yeah.
It was. And then it sold out to clip-on, snap-on tools, and then of course it went out of business and sat empty for a long time, torn down, empty lot. Now it is the healing place.
Right, from the Providence Hospital,
Yes.
right. And what is this? There was a service station?
Yes, at 32nd and Johnson Creek, where the bridge is, at that intersection where the little strip mall and convenience store and donut was. Now I think I don't know if it's in business, but anyway, it was a small 7-Eleven or something like that, you know, grocery. And no, I'm sorry, it was a service station first. I think it was Shell. Anyway, it was the service station. Boy, it was convenient. You get gas and go down to the highway and go to work, you know. But it changed for some reason and became the little tiny strip mall that's there now.
And there was a nursery. You helped build the chimney, is that right?
Yes, on 42nd and Roswell. It's almost right dead end there. In 1941, I was helping my brother-in-law, who was a brick mason, Earl Streeter. I quit the photo finishing business because I knew I was going to go into the service, going to be drafted and all that, but I didn't get drafted. I enlisted in the Air Force, but anyway, so I helped him and earned a few pennies, but I never will forget it because I was used to working in the photo darkroom, picking up pieces of paper from chemicals and moving them over to the hypo and to the water. And then I came out and started carrying bricks and making mud in the cement, hard labor.
Right.
Oh, I was dead tired every night, and my arms ached. But it was a fun thing. Well, we built the chimney there for the greenhouse and the nursery, and it was about a 25 or so foot chimney. I remember it had scaffolding, and I carried these tongs of bricks up. I'd start out with 6 bricks in each tong in the morning and end up with 2 bricks in each tong.
You'd be pretty tired, huh?
Yeah, but it was a big nursery there. And then on down the 42nd was, and up into 45th was Wells Airport.
Now, this is the first time I'd heard that we had an airport in Milwaukee.
It was a community airport, and light aircraft used it. It turned into the big housing area there. The Oregonian, when I was Oregonian News Photo, Leverett Richards, the aviation editor, lived in Vancouver, and he'd call me up, Alan, we got a forest fire, and we're going to fly over it, meet you at Wells Airport. So he'd hop in a little plane at Vancouver, and I'd run up there and park, and here he'd come in, and I'd hop in, and away we'd go. And,
really?
And then it was fun. Of course, he'd land me there too, and I'd get in my car and just a short, 6 miles into town, and I'd have the negatives processed by the time he landed in Vancouver and got back to the Oregonian, and the pictures done. And but it was
amazing. And we want to talk about your history at the Oregonian, but let's just go. We've already talked about the celery fields. Well,
yeah.
We haven't here, but in some of the other shows we've talked about that. But you have some wonderful pictures, and we'll look at that in a little bit.
That was very impressive to me to see all that celery when I moved here.
Along a Railroad Avenue,
yes,
right?
It went on forever, and it was just a beautiful garden there.
Right. And you have a wonderful picture of the tree, the dogwood tree. Yes, we'll have Richard look at that one.
That was only just a couple of 3 blocks from where we lived on the 37th, well, down to 33rd, about like that. And I passed it every day, and this year of 51, it was just gorgeous, and people would park for blocks up and down and to see it. And I made the pictures on the 4x5 speed graphic camera, and then the Columbus Day storm took about half of it, and ice storm some more. And
right, isn't that a shame? That was at 32nd and Harrison, a little bit east of 32nd on the north side of the street.
Behind the little businesses that are there now.
Right.
They weren't there.
And this picture is in the Key Bank, isn't it?
Right.
Right.
Big one. 5-footer is in the Key Bank lobby.
Right. That's
I'm
a wonderful
proud
picture.
of that.
And you took that picture.
Yes.
Good for you. Let's talk about your photography experience. Now, that's how you made your living.
Yes.
You were a photographer and you worked for the Oregonian. Tell us about that.
Well, let's start out at 12 and 13 in Topeka, Kansas, where I went to grade school. And then I moved to Hollywood for a couple of years, lived with my father, and then back to Portland. But I sold newspapers on the street, and one of my best customers was a portrait photographer, and he one time he'd kid me and give me a nickel instead of 2 cents sometimes, it was a big deal. And he says, why don't you come to work for me? He was an Austrian immigrant, and I will pay you $5 a week. And oh boy, that beats selling newspapers.
Sure.
And so I did, and he taught me all the skills, how to develop my film. And I earned my Boy Scout merit badge by buying a little camera with a week's salary. This was purchased for $5 in the stationery store. Took 127 film, little bitty pictures that we made, and you look down here and go clunk and wind it up to the next number. And I just lots of pictures with this. I have just many. And then I graduated to another camera after I went to work in photo finishing in Portland. About 1933, I got a job in a Jones Photo Lab as a processor, and I would run around to Meyer & Frank's, Walgreens, J.K. Gill's, and pick up the film packages and then develop them, or that we used the term, we'd soup them, and get them dried, and then I would practice making prints, and my boss would tell me they're too dark, make them over, and so forth. And I learned to make good quality prints, and stayed in photo finishing there about 7 years, and then was able to enlist in the Air Force as a photographer, and spent my time in Alaska, 3 years, a year at Nome, and 2 years in the Aleutians. Oh boy, but I didn't have to dodge bullets, and I had the photo lab did all the photography that was needed, and had 2 other helpers, and it was a great learning time.
And so what did you do after the service?
When I got out, discharged, I was looking for work, and the first summer I got a job as a lifeguard or waterfront director for a boys camp on the coast at Devil's Lake, and spent the summer there, and that was a fun one because I enjoyed swimming, and I was qualified as a Red Cross water safety instructor anyway, and I could do that. Then came back home and let's look for work, and started checking around, and found a spot at the Oregonian. They were looking for a vacation fill-in photographer, so somebody in. So I qualified there okay, and started to work. I worked for 2 people that took vacations, and the third guy went to the hospital instead, and he died. That put me on permanent. And 1947. And 1948, I had my biggest, probably most amazing photo assignment, and the most famous picture was the Vanport flood. And my pictures made the newswires first. I got them back first, and they went worldwide and became quite famous. A man carrying a little child out, and
I've seen that.
Cars bobbing,
Yes.
in the water. And I waited for the exact moment I saw it coming, and then I waited out, water up to here in my camera, and film over my head.
Wow.
But it was a very exciting time, and all the work. You didn't know what you're going to do when you came to work, and it was a very marvelous job. You learned all the facets of life. You experienced them, the hardships, the deaths, the accidents, the tragedies, everything, and then the happiness, the celebrities, and the interesting people.
What were some of the celebrities and interesting people?
Oh my gosh, I have a show coming up now. I think it'll start May 15th. I'll give a little plug here for the Milwaukie Senior Center.
Right.
They're using my famous faces, I call them, and they're going to make a display all over the place. They've got all the walls figured out. Probably over 100 photos of different interesting people.
How long will that be up, Alan?
I imagine it'll be up for quite a while. But they're timing it to coincide with Senior Citizens Week or month or something like that. But they're just about to be copied and processed and mounted now. But, oh gosh, there's Lucille Ball, Kirk Douglas, Jeanette McDonald, Nelson Eddy, Patty Page. I could just rattle them off forever, but a lot of, very interesting old celebrities that are, I call them memory triggers. I hear people like Patty Page that always seems to bring a response. Oh, she's the one that sang, "How much is that dog in the window?" Arf, arf. Yeah, but they're great fun, and I enjoyed. I've been collecting them and putting them together now in the last couple of years, and they're going over real well.
That'll be nice. This
Yeah.
show may be showing after it starts, after May 15th. This may air, but hopefully it will still be going on so people
Okay.
can go see it.
Yes, I'm sure they'll be there for a month or something. I'm quite sure.
Good. And I want to talk about something else. I'd forgotten, you were talking earlier before the show about the railroad crossing there at Tacoma and McLaughlin.
Yes.
And now, of course, there's an overpass, and people forget that that used to be a terrible crossing, and you just happened to come across something there that happened.
Well, I know that in my Oregonian work I could probably find the pictures I made 2 times. I was sent out to photograph that intersection because an overpass was proposed and it never came about. Years had passed, and I climbed the telephone pole and everything to you know, photograph the intersection. But it was a bummer. One of my experiences was that I was shopping just a couple of blocks down McLaughlin, and I came back around the corner and heard the sirens and the, you know, emergency people, and a car had just been struck. And I had my camera. It stalled on the tracks, and 3 of the occupants got out and another one didn't, and smashed down the track. And of course my pictures made the headlines, and page 1, the Oregonian. I was right there. It was one of those ugh type things that you don't enjoy altogether, but that's your job and you do it. But they finally got everybody agreed, I guess. I think it was the nursery, what's the name of it, across the street there, that
Caches.
That held it up for quite a while, because they would take
some of the property,
and so forth.
Right.
And they finally got some agreement. But anyway, yeah, that was I crossed it humpty hump times. Another one too on Harrison and
your 32nd,
yeah, about 32nd. That was the dangerous one too. These stories keep popping to mind, but Ferd Borsch, he worked in the sports department, and his family lived right west of the intersection, north and west, a house there, old family house, and then the railroad tracks and the intersection. Mr. Borsch drove his car right in front of the train too, and was killed. But he lived there. You know, that's amazing. That's one thing that I get real critical about. I heard it just recently again. Car smashes auto on the railroad track. You mean that train went clear around here and out of the way and hit that car? No, they don't. A car drives in front of the train every doggone time, and it just bugs the heck out of me when I hear train smashes into a school bus. Wait just a minute. But anyway, that was a strange one. I know it hit our news people so close, you know.
Sure.
And me too.
Yeah.
One time, I was coming home late, and they had no cross bar signal, ding, 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 and I saw the headlights coming, and way down there, ding, ding, heck, I stopped. I can get across.
It's scary.
I moved across and boom!
Yeah.
I stopped and got out of the car and stood there and watched that freight train. I misjudged it completely.
Yeah.
I never did that again, of course.
I've done that too. We have a train going by just a few blocks from our house. Alan, we haven't even gotten around to talking about your wonderful experience as a diver. This is a great picture of champion diver of the world, Navy. This was in 1934. And Alan has all of these medals. These are just a few of the medals. These are gold and silver.
Yes,
and some beautiful medals that Alan has, plus more. So another show we'll do with Alan one day to talk about all these wonderful medals at swimming and diving. Not only that, Alan is a world-class musical saw player, and we'll show that picture too. So Alan, will you come back another time and we'll talk about all of these experiences besides your experiences in the photography business.
Oh dear, yes.
Yes.
Well, we could go on and on.
Yes, we certainly could.
I've lived long enough, I guess.
And Alan, you will soon be 87.
Yep.
And many of these medals that you've gotten in your later years, is that right?
Yes, just the last 2 years, these here only.
Yeah.
I've got more at home. But these are dandies. They're records. Almost all of them are records that I've been able to catch in my new age group, the 85 to 89 Masters. For a matter of fact, right now, there are no other competitors in my age group in Oregon.
And we have about 1 or 2 minutes left. You are also a Boy Scout, and you've been a Boy Scout for many, many years, and I've got that picture down here somewhere. We'll find it. and show it. Richard can show that.
Boy Scout.
Yeah, it'll come. We'll find that.
Oh.
So you were a Boy Scout. You've been a Boy Scout how many years?
My total registration is 75 years.
75 years.
Yes, 75. I've kept my registration intact from age 12 on up, and during the war and everything, I associated with the troop in Nome and Anchorage, and got passes to go out to their meetings and help them, and so I've been active. That's the best part, and I'm active now. I go to Troop 259's meeting. They meet at the Milwaukie Lutheran Church on Lake Road, and I'm an instructor. I can do that nicely. I don't take too heavy assignments, but I was Scoutmaster 40 years myself, and somebody else can do that nicely, and we have a fine adult support in the troop. And I'm just finishing a merit badge group of kids in emergency preparedness, and it's a very important one, and it's just fun to work with the children and do that.
Alan, I think you were a Renaissance man in the best sense of the word in all of your experiences.
Right,
there you are, right.
Yeah.
We'll show this. Richard will be showing this. So thank you so much for joining us, Alan. We'd love to have you back again, and we'll talk about all of your exploits with swimming and diving and the musical saw.
You have about 4 hours?
Yes. We will
right.
take a long time to do that.
Thank you so much.
You
it's
bet.
a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today. We've had as our guest today Alan DeLay of Milwaukie, who has a wonderful history in Boy Scouts and in photography and in swimming and diving. We'll have him again another time and talk about all of the medals that he has won. I'm Carolyn Tomei, State Representative, and you're watching Milwaukie Today. And this series is called Milwaukie Yesterday because we're talking about the history of Milwaukie. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.